Does your money feel like it's not stretching as far as it used to? That's not just your imagination. That's inflation. Inflation quietly erodes your savings and makes everything more expensive. But most people, whilst they've heard of inflation, don't realize how much damage it can actually do. Stick around, because in this video and the next one, I'm breaking down exactly what inflation is, how it steals your hard-earned money, and what you can do to fight back. Let's start with the basics. Inflation is the rise in prices over time, meaning the same amount of money buys less than it used to be able to. Let's take an example here. 20 years ago, a loaf of bread might have cost 50p. Today, it's closer to £1.50 or more. That's inflation in action. Prices go up and the value of your money goes down. But why does this happen? Inflation can be caused by increased demand. When more people want something, prices go up, or higher costs. If it costs more to produce goods or services, these costs get passed back to us. Or growth in money supply. When government prints more money, it can make existing money less valuable. Think about it like this. People get pay rises in their jobs. And if you're doing really well, you'll get a bigger pay rise than others. This means that the company or organization that gives you that pay rise has to pay out more, so their expenses go up. And what happens when their expenses go up, do you think? Profit equals sales minus expenses. Or more technically, revenue minus cost of goods sold. So what happens if their expenses, their staffing costs, go up? Well, if you look back to that formula, this means their profits will fall if nothing else changes. But they don't want their profits to fall, right? Who would? In fact, they want to make more profit. So they increase their revenues by putting prices up. And then, along with higher costs and increased demand, inflation can happen by more money entering the economy. Manufactured money. Whenever government prints more money, usually because it thinks it can avoid a bigger catastrophe, a bigger financial catastrophe by doing so, it makes existing money less valuable. Another way to think about this is, imagine there were only 5 apples in the world and you had them. For everyone that wants an apple, you would be in demand. Those apples would be in demand. How much could you charge for them? They'd be insanely valuable. Now imagine someone else found 50 more apples somewhere else. Now the total world population of apples is 55 apples. Are your 5 apples still just as valuable as they were? No, they're not. The result of all this is that over time, your money loses its purchasing power, even if it's sitting in a decent savings account. So then you might ask, why is inflation a threat to my savings? Think about it like this. If inflation is running at 5% a year, so prices are rising by 5% each year, but your savings account is only earning you 2% interest on your money, then you're effectively losing 3% of your money's value each year. Now let's take a real life example to illustrate this further. Let's say you've got £10,000. After a year of inflation running at 5%, that same £10,000 can only buy what 9,500 could buy the year before. And over time, that gap grows wider and your money's value shrinks faster. One big problem is that psychologically, it doesn't feel like you're getting poorer because we are so used to focusing on the cold hard numbers. If I have 10k, well, I'll always have 10k, right? The answer is yes, you'll always have £10,000. But that £10,000 won't be able to buy as much as it used to. This is what purchasing power is. If you're buying something for £10,000 and now it costs, let's say, £12,200, well then you can't really buy that thing anymore. So your £10,000 is worth less than it used to be in terms of the stuff you can buy with it. It's still worth £10,000, but it just can't buy the same stuff anymore. This is why relying on cash savings alone isn't enough to stay ahead of inflation. When people don't understand inflation, they usually make costly mistakes, such as keeping all their savings in cash. Cash does feel safe, but as we've just talked about, inflation eats away slowly at its value, and not investing is the other mistake. Many avoid investing because it feels risky, but not investing means guaranteed losses because of inflation. The losses are still happening, it just doesn't feel like it. Ignoring inflation is like trying to fill a bucket with a hole at the bottom, a slight variation on my leaky financial bucket that I've mentioned in other videos. You're losing money without realizing it. Now you understand what inflation is and why it's a threat. The question is, what can you do about it? In the next video, which will probably appear over here somewhere in a minute, we'll dive into practical strategies to protect your savings and even grow your money faster than inflation can steal it. Make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell to avoid missing it when it comes out. And if it's already out, then you're in luck. Tap here next.